Okay. He replied. He says he's on it. So here he is. He's Mr. On It. Boom. Look at how on it he is. All right, man.
Certainly Mr. On It, if not Mr. Honest. We finally have made it, and we're actually here, despite the fact that I'm in a different time zone than we originally planned to be. I can't believe we pulled it off. Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So where are you?
I'm actually out in Utah right now. I just did a crossover with our friends over at the King of Random, and they were asking about schedule. I said, there's 1 hour that is non-negotiable. I have to appear on a live stream. That's it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate being shortlisted. Very cool.
Hey, so where should I plug into the chat? Where's the party at?
You're in it.
I don't know if that means like I am the chat, I am the entirety of it, or...
This is it. It's happening. You're live in front of 16 million people right now.
I believe all of this, but I want to see what they're saying about me. See, like, Brian, the thing is, I'm very selfish, and I'm mean, and I want to know what they think of me.
I was just sent a text message about you, and I don't know that this is confidential or not, but do you know what I'm referring to? That would be extraordinary news?
There is some extraordinary news about, and you did say the word shortlisted, and that makes me think of another thing.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
I received a text message about it just now.
I guess we could say...
I'm not going to say anything, but if you want to, go ahead.
I don't know what you're referring to, but fun fact, 2 days ago, we received word that our comedy album, All's Well, a Night Attack album, is being shortlisted for an MRF Grammy, like in the category of comedy albums. There's a lot of them on there, and of course we have the big hurdle to explain to everybody who might not be in on the joke as to what we do, but we created a comedy album that, I say we have one very talented super fan who week after week takes little snippets of stuff out of our comedy podcast and turns them into songs. So we made an album of them, and it's just a delightfully bizarre journey to listen to. And when we released it, all of our fans and friends, they all bought it the same day. It was briefly the #1 best-selling album on all of Amazon, full stop. It hit #3 on all of iTunes. And we're like, high five, we defeated the Death Star. That's great. And we didn't really think about it until months later. I was talking to somebody, and he was like, that's extraordinary. Wait, and I played a bit of the album, and he said, I'm a member of the Academy. I'm like, what Academy? And he says, the Academy that decides the Grammys. Would you like me to submit this for a Grammy? And I'm like, sure, guy. Go ahead. You do you. Then,
wow, it's as easy as that.
Yeah, 2 days ago, I find out that we are officially submitted. We're on the ballot. And so now, I believe only like 5, 6, 7 of them can actually be officially Grammy nominated. But this is the part where I don't have the phone numbers or addresses of anybody who's at in the Academy. So if anybody watching or listening knows somebody in the Academy, the story's simple. Hey, what if an album that was not highly political, that was not filled with rage, that was nothing but pure joy from a talented musical fan trying to take funny stuff we say and turn it into music? What if that, it seems like that deserves an Emmy or a Grammy nomination. I'd be down for that. So now we have to figure out how to make that happen and happen fast, because I believe all that wraps up in just 9 days.
Well, you do have to make it happen fast, because about 2 hours ago we had Rachel Bloom on, and she showed us her Emmy and her Golden Globe. So you better get on this, pal, because next year we're going to need to see that hardware.
Like, I'll tell you what, give me a box of crayons. I'm going to steal the gold and the silver one. Give me 20 minutes.
So I guess we first met at an amazing meeting, probably number 8 or 9, probably something like 2012, 2013. I don't know, somewhere around in there.
I wonder if we maybe met by accident before then, because my first amazing meeting was 2000, 3 or 4 or 5. I think it was the Amazing Meeting 3, and I went just because for the first time I was going to start, along with my Bizarre Magic show, I was going to start doing a bonus lecture to schools that wanted, 2 programs. And I was like, well, it seems like I should be plugged in with the rest of the skeptic community and at least find out what's going on. Unfortunately, this is right around the same time that Penn and Teller are launching their famous Showtime series, and the skeptic movement was really getting cranked up. So I felt like a very, very small fry in that time. But I wonder if during that time we might have bumped into each other, because the next time I can think of after that was Dragon Con, where I knew you were on the agenda at Dragon Con, and so the more Skeptoid episodes I listened to, the more excited I got about your work, and the more I felt in love.
Go ahead, keep going.
Oh, I felt like I was doing homework at first, and then I wanted to. The more I listened, the more I'm like, wow, nobody does this. He's not demonizing the enemy. He legitimately is doing the best version of the story and then breaking down the story, which I thought was just delightful.
You're saying great things, but I'm showing the picture of what you were talking about a second ago, which is that Dragon Con time where you and I met. Do you see that image?
Yeah, no, I see the picture.
Yeah.
That's definitely our efforts to drink constantly in public. So we wrapped up all of our natty lights in thin wrappers that said Dharma Initiative non-alcoholic beverages.
I apologize that I think I drank all of those that you brought.
They were our most popular gift. One of the things we did is we went up and down the Hall of Fame, and we gave them to anybody who would want one. And my favorite moment was LeVar Burton. We're like, hey man, you look like you could use one of these. And we handed it, and his eyes lit up. And then he grabs it, and he's like midway to pulling the tab, and he goes, wait, this isn't an energy drink, is it? We're like, no, it's Natty Light. And he goes, oh, thank goodness. And he cracks it open, and then we continue to hang out. It was freaking great.
That's fun. Let's see. Bring up 10 random guy. I'm going to subject you to a few more little photos of times gone by. This was a more. Oh, wait a minute. No, that's not it. Oh, there we go. That's it. Yeah, there we go. So this is, I think, the most recent Dragon Con, I think, from last year, or 2 Dragon Cons ago, because I guess they just had one. So
holy cow, look at us.
You're going to tell us who's that guy across the table.
Wait, hold on one second. Let me see if I can zoom in.
Oh, you might have to zoom in, yeah.
Yeah, wait.
I can tell you who it is. You have no idea who it is. This is that random guy that just latched onto us somehow. And we ended up buying him dinner and drinks and everything because he just jumped on the bus and came along with us for the evening.
Wouldn't you, man? All of a sudden you're there with the guy from Skeptoid and the scam school guy and hanging out. Who's going to walk away from that?
Yeah, hopefully we made his Dragon Con. Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I just said he's not here in the chat, able to comment to the fact that it was him.
If he is, it's great to see you again, dude. Right on. So let me ask you something. So you have gone. When I brought up when we first met because you were coming to amazing meetings and you were doing kind of the skeptic thing, and arguably you've gone quite some distance from that in pursuit of more popular things that work better on YouTube. Would you agree with that, or would you? Do you find that there's a place for sort of skeptical activism, the promotion of critical thinking, in more popular type of programming like what you're doing now?
When I was first really attracted to the skeptical movement, it's a wild experience, and anybody under the age of 25 probably can't directly relate to what it's like to have no recourse when everybody says things that they just know. I mean, there's no counterfact. There's no, like, you could talk about going to the library or reading a book or whatever, but likely that won't happen. once the internet came along, once your Snopes.com, once your fact checks came along, it truly was extraordinary. For me, my most extraordinary moment in all of skeptical training was taking a class called Pseudoscience and the Paranormal by Dr. Rory Coker at the University of Texas at Austin. And I had never done this before. I took it because it satisfied a physics requirement, but essentially it was a primer on deception. It was a entry level course on how people fool ourselves, how magicians fool us, how frauds fool us. And it was so powerful that I took it again the following semester, and I made all of my roommates go take it. So without getting any credit, I just went and re-attended it because I was like, there's so much knowledge here that I want to hold on to it as much as I can. Nowadays, I probably wouldn't have done that, but because now it's all at our fingertips. We can do searches for all these things. We're also, as a culture, much more familiar with all the cognitive biases that trap us. But that show, that course, for lack of a better word, in 1995, 1996, transformed my world. And then later, even as I started touring, there was this moment after the show that people would talk to me about some of the mind-reading stuff that I did in the show. And they would ask, like, do you rely in tapping into otherworldly forces, or are you looking at their body posture, or blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, no, dude, I cheat. And why would you even think that? It became clear that there were so many people who hadn't even heard the foundations of deception. And so I created a show called Scams, Sasquatch, and the Supernatural, for which the full 90-minute presentation is.
Oops.
Tim, not us.
Okay.
It allowed me to do the show with one set of rules, which is I'm on stage, I'm going to try to fool you, and everything I say is a lie. Then to break all of that and say, okay, now you and I are on the same team. I'm going to tell you all of the biases that make it possible, like for somebody like me to fool you, and here's how all these scamsters do their stuff. And out of that really is what where Scam School came from. And in the case of Scam School, the MacGuffin is getting the girl's phone number or getting a free drink. But really, I've always considered it a foundational course on the basics of deception, whether it's for magic, whether it's for social engineering, whether it's for scamming or whatever. I feel like there's an inherent difference between being told you can be fooled and having gone through the experience of actually fooling another human being. Only after the latter do you understand how easy it is to recognize those signs when somebody's trying to snow you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I am unable to fool anyone, and I am always the most easily fooled person in the room. It's a terrible position to be in.
No, but that's great though. That's great to know about yourself.
How is that great?
It's great because number one, from an artistic perspective, I wish I could be fooled as easily as it sounds like you are, because that means you get to experience a lot more real magic than I get to experience. I get very, very close. I'm always chasing that high of looking real wonder in the face, but 20 seconds later, I'm like, oh, wait, I perceive that as one hand, but if there was a mirror, then it would be two hands. And all of a sudden, wonder is taken away from me. So it's fine. The tough thing is, I wish more people were comfortable with the idea of being fooled. I wish there was no stigma around the idea of being fooled.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you go to a magic convention, these are all 2,000 people sitting there watching the showcase show. This is 2,000 professional deceptors, and they're all in the room. Not one of them is there in the room because they're hoping to not be fooled. They're all desperately hoping to be fooled. They all know the rules of chess, and they're hoping that the person that they're going to see is even better at chess than they are. So there's, in a world where there are two schools of thoughts, there are some magicians that agree, hey, one way that makes it real easy to be the best chess player in the room is if nobody knows the rules of chess. And those are the protectionists. Those are the people who say never share a secret or whatever. I am very much of the mind of, no. I want everybody to know the rules of chess so that there's maximum competition, so that we're able to study the book moves of other people, and then only the greatest chess players are the ones who are truly competitive. Unfortunately, the techniques of magic are also the techniques of charlatanism. And if you are protecting magicians by keeping the public ignorant, then you have the unfortunate consequence of also protecting charlatans. Whereas my philosophy is everybody should know as much about magic as I know. Then that is a healthy immune system where it's very unlikely that we're just going to fall for the first charlatan that comes along.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think you said it very well. And I particularly like the idea of referring to that as an immunization. I mean, the typical person that I'll have a problem with on email or Twitter or something is a conspiracy theorist who believes I'm being paid by the government or something. And that's a person who, I mean, they receive these ideas from people who just toss them out on YouTube or the internet with no supporting information at all, and they like it. It agrees with what they want to think, and so they just absorb it. It just becomes part of them instantly. They have no immune system against these kind of crazy ideas whatsoever.
Yeah, and we don't get to decide for other people what they think. And a friend of mine is a motivational speaker, and I don't know if we've talked about this on the air before, but he talks about the Bruce Lee defense. Bruce Lee, he weighed barely over 100 pounds. He couldn't bench press more than 100 pounds. He was fast and agile, but when somebody big came at him, the worst possible move he could make would be to match force with force, to take that fist and try to block it. He didn't have the mass to do that, and it wouldn't have worked. So instead, he developed his light water thing, where it's like, energy is moving. Let me just move it off to the side, figure out a way to use this for my advantage. The metaphor that I think of, whether it's I'm on stage dealing with a heckler or an online troll and has some negative stuff to say online, or if you're trying to cross the Atlantic on a wind-powered boat, you don't worry when the wind is blowing the wrong direction. You worry when there's no wind. And my friend Curtis, he said that it's three phrases that he uses, and he credits this to Bruce Lee. I don't know that Bruce Lee ever said it, but when somebody says something that you patently know to be false, that you know is 100%, the first thing you say is, I hear you. And the way you say I hear you is by restating what they just said in such a way that they nod and say the words exactly. Then the second thing you say is like, if I was in your position, I would say the exact same thing. Because keep in mind, if you knew what they knew, if you had experienced what they had experienced, of course you would say the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And then step 3, at this point you've not rejected a single tenet that they've given you. Step 3 is when you say, but this is what I learned that got me around that. And then at that point, you've established rapport, you've got
He's good.
Both of you on the same side, and it's like, yeah. And you're like, but then I learned this. And now you're able to have a real discussion. And if they say like, well, that can't be true, because whatever, and it just back to the beginning. Like, I hear you. I thought the exact same thing. But then I learned about the conservation of momentum and energy. Then I learned about this. And it's like, so that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. You're basically just validating their feelings, validating their beliefs, rather than attacking them, which are two polar opposite things.
Yeah, never meet force with force. Everything from, because keep in mind, and this is from an entertainment perspective, one of the most extraordinary things I saw was a friend of mine who is a world champion arm wrestler. He weighs maybe 20 more pounds than me. He's 5'7" and weighs 180 pounds. And his muscle tissue is so dense, he can literally take a horseshoe and bend it into the shape of a heart. He'll take a frying pan and roll it up like a newspaper. And we were on tour together. It was at a concert venue, so people are drinking, they're getting loose or whatever. And he, on stage, there was a pocket of hecklers who were making claims about, like, fake this, fake that, or whatever. So he finished his show and then called them on over and just said, oh, man, if I were you guys, I totally would thought this is fake. And then why not? You're not allowed to inspect it or anything. Here, do me a favor. Check all this stuff out. Look at these nails. Try to bend these. Touch them. Push it in your friend's hand. But now, all right, totally surround me. And then now watch. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they got it in a way that they didn't. They originally were only able to express their skepticism in an unhelpful way that was damaging to the show. But once they were handed all of the rest of the story that they wanted, all of a sudden they became his biggest fans. They were chasing him around for the rest of the day. And I come from the sensibility of, if somebody is messing with me, that's a troll, that's a jerk, that's a heckler, just shut them down and move on. But by doing the exact opposite, he recognized that, again, you don't worry when the energy is the wrong direction, you worry when there's no energy. And so he took that energy and with just a little bit of clarification, harvested it and made some of his biggest, loudest followers.
So this is all great stuff. Does this? Would you say that this applies to what was your show on Nat Geo? Hacking the System?
Yep.
Hacking and is that the type of would you call that social engineering that was on? I mean, essentially what the Muscle Man guy is doing with twisting the horseshoe. I mean, he's forcing
because there's the original concept for that television show was I quit my day job in May of '99, and since then I've toured major musicians. I performed 1,000 shows nationwide. I appeared on the Tonight Show twice. I toured internationally. I built a show and developed technologies up to and including performing mind control experiments on the International Space Station. And the original conceit for that show is, what are all the things? How does that change your worldview? Because you can't unknow the things that you know. You walk into the movie theater and you notice that the countertops are orange. And because you know it, you can't unknow the fact that from 1992 to 1996, orange countertops had 6% higher grosses of revenues over purple or green countertops. These facts, the most magical thing I ever saw was, as a freshman, there was somebody who was plugged in to the hacker community, and we were walking past a FedEx box, and he just stopped, reached over, pressed 2 buttons in the upper left quadrant, 3 buttons on the other side of the dial, and then opened it up, and there was everybody's FedEx packages. Now, of course, this is theft, and it was, they're not defending it, but to my eyes, I never had a more clear moment of knowledge being magic. Like, he just knew a thing, and it wasn't a supernatural thing, but to know that. And so we started to collect all of the ideas that what are all the things that this perfect rogue-like archetype would know? Everything from how to bust out of zip ties, and how to hotwire a car, how to the right spot to arc 2 things to cause train crossing stations to go haywire, whether or not how to cause red lights to turn green, and the original pitch for that show was very, very dark and underhanded. A whole bunch of, not that you would, but you could. Probably not a surprise that as it got a higher profile, it became more and more important that we made sure that everything be sanitized, that we not do anything to get sponsors in trouble or to get television stations in trouble. But what we ended up with is very approachable, very fun, very family friendly.
Yeah.
But out of my frustration for all the stuff that I wished I could say, that's where our new project, The Modern Rogue, comes from.
Right.
And so now, Jason Murphy and I, we started with a very tall stack of rejected ideas that we had for the TV show. And now, suddenly absent of any adults to tell us no, we're out there smashing ferrocerium rods, starting fires, building tasers out of camera phones and all that stuff. And not that that's sustainable forever, but man, has it have been a lot of fun to sort of just revel in the Wild West of these days.
So I've got to ask you to, we're out of time now, so I've got to ask you to tell us where can people go to see that giant stack of rejected ideas?
Dude, youtube.com/modern rogue, MODERNROGUE. You got to spell it right.
Should I spell it like Rouge?
Nope. That's
No?
a different thing.
Oh, okay.
Rouge is the blood that comes out when a rogue backstabs.
All right.
I'll tell you what, we're just about to creep up to 1 million views. So if you want to say you were there before we got 1 million subscribers, now is the time. YouTube.com/modern rogue.
He's offering a huge prize if you're the millionth viewer, too. All right, man. Well, we got to sign
Huge
off.
prizes. A big thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Congratulations to you guys, man. Skeptoid is an institution that has changed so many lives. Couldn't be happier or more proud of you guys.
You heard it here first. Thank you very much, man. See you soon.
All right, bye, guys.